Hello, my name is Albert and I'm 58 years old. I'm a man who earned most of his fortune very late in life. I started my business selling fire pits and outdoor cooking equipment when I was 48. The real breakthrough didn't happen till I was 51. Now it's been 10 years since I've been running the business. I have stores all over the country, but we still sell most of the products through the website and other e-commerce platforms. The US has a huge market for fire pits, grills, and other outdoor cooking equipment. We also offer maintenance services. I have a booming business now, but things were quite different a few years back. Before I started my business, I used to work in a factory that manufactured fire pits and grills. It wasn't a very high-paying job, and I had to work 8 hours daily, sometimes more. My wife, Julia, used to work as a receptionist for a hotel. We both had to put in the hours to make ends meet, especially covering our daughter Grace's tuition fees. Times were tough, but we managed somehow. I never got the chance to finish my formal education. My father was a farmer, and I spent most of my childhood helping him raise cattle. I never went to a college, so when we moved to the city, it was tough for me to find a decent job. I started working in a factory, and that was it. I had been working in the same factory for 15 years. Paycheck was meager, but I couldn't afford to bail. I knew opportunities elsewhere were scarce. My daughter, on the other hand, was ashamed of me. She didn't spill the beans until she was in her senior high school year. Her friends used to bully her because her father was broke. I remember the first time she told me about all the bullying. One of her friends got a new car for her birthday from her parents, and jealousy hit Grace hard. She came back from school crying. She went straight to her room. I came back from work and Julia told me that Grace had been crying all day. I went up to her room to check on her. Hey, sweetheart, what happened? Nothing. I'm just having a bad day. You know you can tell your dad anything, right? It's nothing. I'm okay. You know I can always tell when you lie. Come on now, tell me what happened. Why is my baby girl crying? One of my friends just got a car for her birthday. That's nice. That's the problem, Dad. It's just too nice. She now has her own car. When will I get my own car, Dad? Sweetheart, you know we don't have that kind of money. How is this fair? She gets to have a car and I don't? You know, Dad, she's failing all her subjects and I'm better than her at studies and sports. Still, everybody wants to be around her because she always has the finest things with her. Last year, she went on a trip to Paris with her parents, and she was talking about it all summer. I know how you feel, Grace, but we don't have enough money. You have your entire life to get these things for yourself. Your mom and I are saving money to send you to a good college. You'll get a good job after college, and then you can buy yourself these things. And it'll be more special because you're going to buy all these things with your own money. You always say this, but how long do I have to wait? We've never been out of the city for a vacation. All of my friends go on vacations with their family to these amazing places, but we never go anywhere. I know, Grace, but we can't do anything about it. You know your mom and I are working very hard to give you whatever we can. But it's not enough, Dad. Listen, sweetheart, you know your grandfather was a farmer, and he never sent me to college. I don't want the same thing to happen to you. We can't afford to take you on these vacations because we have to save money for your college, so you can make a good life for yourself. All of my friends bully me saying that I'm the daughter of a broke factory worker. All the kids always bully me. Do you want me to go to your school and talk to your teachers? No, Dad. I'm not 8. You don't need to go to the school and talk to the teachers. What do you want me to do? You can take my car sometimes, but we have to get you a driving license first. Ew, Dad, no. I won't take your old damaged car to the school. Everyone would make fun of me. Listen, Grace, I don't want to listen to you anymore, Dad. I wish you were more than just a factory worker. I wish I had a better life than this. I wish you were as rich as my other friends' dads. I'm trying my best, sweetheart. Well, best is just not enough, Dad. Now, will you get out of my room, please? I need to sleep. All right. You know I love you, right? Night, Dad. I left the room. I could understand what she was going through, and I cursed myself for not being a good dad. I remember I felt like I was failing to be the man my family needed me to be, and all of the things she said hurt more because she was telling the truth. If I was more than just a factory worker, I would have been able to give her a better life. I sat on my couch all night, just thinking about all of the things she said. After a few weeks, Julia told me that Grace and her friends were planning a 4-day trip to a beach city after their graduation ceremony. The moment Julia said this, it reminded me of all the things Grace had said to me the other night. The graduation ceremony was supposed to happen in May, and I had 5 months to get the money for her trip. I decided that I would work double shifts, and even on Saturdays, to get the money for her trip. The father in me didn't want this baby girl to miss her last trip with her high school friends. I worked double shifts for 5 months, and was able to save enough money to buy her a beautiful dress for prom and send her on that trip. After the graduation ceremony was over, Grace and her friends went for the trip, and she looked so happy. Grace hugged me and Julia before getting into her friend's car, and I was happy to see my daughter smiling and laughing. Watching her happy made me happy. A few months after she graduated from high school, we sent her to college. Grace wanted to study communication and media, so we sent her to the finest college in our city. Julia and I were saving money for her college ever since she was 8, and now it was time to send her off. The college had a residential facility, so Grace moved out, and she lived in her college dormitory. After the first year of college, Grace told me she had started working in a supermarket to earn some money. I was very proud of her. She was becoming a responsible adult now. To see my baby girl move out and go to a job so she could save some money was not easy, but I knew it was necessary for her. She needed to learn how the world worked. 2 years after Grace left home for college, I got to know that her mom had been cheating on me with her boss for a very long time. One day, I went to the factory for work as usual, but there was a power outage at the factory, so all of the workers were sent home. I came back home and called out for Julia. She told me she was in the shower. I went to our room to change when her phone rang. I picked up her phone, and there was a text from David, Julia's boss. I wasn't planning on reading the text, but I could see from the pop-up notification that he sent her hearts and flower emojis. Now I was curious. Why was my wife's boss sending her heart emojis on text? I tried to open the phone, but it was locked. I tried a couple of different passcodes, but they were incorrect. Finally, I entered Julia's birth year, and the phone was unlocked. I opened David's text, and I was shocked to read their conversations. They were planning about how Julia would give me a divorce and marry David. I scrolled up and I found out that they had been seeing each other for a very long time. I read the text, and I felt a chilling sensation run down my spine. My heart sank as I read their text messages. Shortly after, Julia came out of the shower and saw me with her phone. She came and snatched her phone back. I was so invested in reading their text that I didn't realize she had come to the room. She looked at her phone and knew that I had read her text with David. She looked at me, and I looked at her. There was a brief moment of silence for a while, and then she said, "Albert, I can explain." "How long has this been going on?" "Listen to me, Albert. I'll tell you everything. Just calm down." "How can I calm down when I just found out that my wife has been cheating on me with her boss?" "Can we just sit down and talk about it? I'll tell you everything you need to know." "How long has it been since you're doing this?" "Albert, please." "Just answer the question, Julia." "It has been 4 years." 4 years? All of this has been going on for 4 years? Listen, I know it sounds what, Julia? Wrong? That's because it is. And you're planning to divorce me and marry David? "Albert, you were never meant to find out." "So you're telling me you were planning to divorce me and marry David, leaving me to think that our marriage didn't work out. You were never going to tell me about David." "Please, Albert, just come. How can you do this to me? We've been together for so many years. How can you?" "Listen, Albert. Wait, please. Albert." I walked out of the house angrily. I took my car and went to a place near the factory that I used to work in. It was a large barren land, and it was empty. I was sitting in the driver's seat and I broke down. All I could think of was how Julia could do this to me. We've been together for so many years. We have a daughter who is an adult now. I was heartbroken. I sat there for an hour and then I decided that I was going to end our marriage. She, anyway, was planning to divorce me. I drove my car back home. When I got home, I saw Julia was talking to someone on the phone. She didn't notice that I was back. I heard her say David's name. She was talking to David. telling him about how I dashed off from the home after finding out about them. I called her name, and she turned around and cut the call as soon as she saw me. I told her that I wanted to talk about all of this. We sat at the dining table. As soon as we sat, before I could say anything, she told me that she wanted a divorce. I think that we shouldn't be together anymore now. We should get a divorce and move on with our lives. Read my mind. There's nothing we can do now to save anything that is left between us. The ship has already sailed. Look, Albert, I know you're hurt, but our marriage just isn't working out. How could it be when you're seeing your boss behind my back? It's not just about David. Even before I met David, I always knew that we'd eventually have to call it quits. I can't live like this anymore. I've been working my whole life. I don't even get time for myself. All we do is work all day. We barely have time for each other ever. I'm working too, Julia. And we have a daughter who's in college. We have to work to save money for her and to cover our expenses too. I understand that, but I feel like we're just stuck in this never-ending loop of misery. I don't want to work my whole life. I have some dreams that I want to live. What about me, Julia? I have some dreams too. I want to live with them too. You were not alone. We were in this together. I know, Albert, but this can't go on forever. You won't get a job anywhere. You're bound to be a factory worker for the rest of your life. And I'm just a receptionist. One of us needs to get paid better. And I don't think either of us is going to be more than what we are right now. So you're just going to take the easy way out? Divorce me and marry David? It's not just about David, Albert. I have a life too. Ever since I've married you, I've only been working. We never go on vacations or to fancy restaurants, and we never buy ourselves something good. That's because we have a child we need to take care of. Do you want Grace to live her life the way we live? We need to save money for her, so she has everything she needs to make a good life for herself. But what about us, Albert? What about me? After Grace moved out, I thought we'd have more time for ourselves, and things would change, but nothing has changed. We still work all the time, and we never do anything to make ourselves happy. Are we seriously having this conversation right now? I know you've made sacrifices, but so have I. We vowed to be by each other's side through thick and thin. But it has only been bad, Albert. I don't think I can do this anymore. You already know the truth now. I think we should just separate and move on to live our lives the way we want. I know you've already made up your mind, and nothing I say could change it, so I won't try now. We should get a divorce. That was the plan, right? We'll get a divorce so you can marry David and have the life you always dreamed about. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Neither do I. There's no point in talking now. Our marriage is doomed. It's over. There was no going back now. Both of us had made up our minds about getting a divorce. We started sleeping in different rooms. After a few weeks, we started our legal divorce procedures. We used to go to court hearings, and after a few months, we decided that we would tell Grace about the divorce. We told her that we were coming to her college to meet her, and that we wanted to tell her something. She insisted that we don't go to her college. Instead, she sent us the pin of a restaurant near her college. That's where she wanted us to meet her. We agreed. We went to the restaurant, and she was already sitting there. We walked up to her table and hugged her. We ordered some food and asked her about her studies and everything. We casually talked for a few minutes, and then I felt the time was right. I told her about everything. Listen, sweetheart, we have something to tell you. Yeah, go ahead, Dad. I'm listening. So your mother and I have decided to separate. What do you mean separate? We've decided that we're going to end our marriage. We're getting a divorce. You're joking, right? No, honey. Unfortunately, it's not a joke. We've decided that we can't live together anymore, and that we should exit each other's lives. And you're an adult now. You don't have to choose between us. We're always going to be your parents. You came all the way here to tell me all of this? We've already begun our divorce procedures, and we thought that we should tell you all about it now. I knew it was eventually going to happen. What do you mean? I knew that Mom would eventually leave you. I know about her and David. What? Why didn't you ever tell me? Because Mom told me not to. She told me that she would eventually give you a divorce. And honestly, I don't really want to get involved in all of this. Your mom was seeing David behind my back and you knew it? And you didn't tell me anything about it? Can you really blame her, Dad? What? I mean, I've seen Mom work her whole life. Other moms in our neighborhood stay in their homes all day and chill. Mom has to go to work 5 days a week. Because you're not paid enough. What? Your mom and I are working to give you the life we never had. I know, Dad, but if you had a good job, me and Mom would have lived a better life. And David, on the other hand, is rich. Mom would never have to work again if she married him. David is single, and Mom would be single after the divorce. I don't see a problem here. How can you say that after everything that has happened? Look, Dad, I appreciate you and Mom doing everything for me, but Mom too has a life. And at least Mom's BF isn't a penniless factory worker like yo. She'll have a better life now, Dad. David also sends me money sometimes. Do you remember when I went on that trip after my graduation? David gave me a lot of money as my graduation present so I could have an amazing trip. I don't know what to say. We all need to move on with our lives now. I'm getting a job in a newspaper company after my college. Mom would go live with David, and you'll have all the money you earn for yourself. I think it's going to turn out to be good for all of us, Dad. You need to move on now, and look at the bigger picture. I never thought I would hear my daughter say that our family breaking apart is a good thing. Come on, Dad. We all knew that it was eventually going to happen. Mom, you, and I need to grow and have better lives. Anyway, I'm glad that you came here to meet me, but I have to go now. I have plans with some of my friends, and I'm already running late. Text me when you get home. Bye. I love you both. And Grace went off. It was just me and Julia now, and I was too stunned to hear my daughter say these things. Julia had to wave her hand in front of my eyes to bring me back to reality. I paid the bill, and then we went off to our home. On our way home, all I could think of was how could my daughter be so heartless and say these things like it was nothing? She already knew about everything, and she thinks it's okay that her mom is cheating on her dad? All of this just broke my heart. We reached home and we went to our beds. I had trouble sleeping for weeks thinking about how my daughter reacted to everything. It took 6 months to finalize everything in our divorce. After a few months of our divorce, Julia married David. They invited everyone, the neighbors, Grace's friends, except me. I was just isolated. I only went to work and didn't talk to anyone. My social life was non-existent at that moment. One day, one of my coworkers, Mark, came to my home to check up on me. It was a weekend. He noticed that I didn't talk to anyone in the factory and just finished my shift and left every day. He came to my house and I invited him in. He had brought beers and told me that he wanted to talk to me about something. We sat on the couch and had some beers. That's when he told me about his business plan. I don't know if it's the right time or not, but I'll just say it out loud. I have a business plan that I think could change our lives for the better. Mark, I don't know if I'm ready for anything right now. I know you're going through a tough time, Albert, but just hear me out. If you don't want to be a part of it, I promise I'll never bother you again. All right, I'm listening. So we've been working in the factory most of our lives, right? Yes, unfortunately. And we know everything about it. We know how the logistics work. We know where to get the raw materials from. We both specialize in seeing the manufacturing process, right? That's right. I'm a little lost now. What are you trying to say? All I'm saying is that why don't we continue doing all this stuff before ourselves? What do you mean? Why don't we just start our own company, manufacture our own products, and start selling them? We already know there's a huge market potential. We can't just start our own company. We can, Albert. I've thought this through. We can have a temporary contract with a manufacturing center and manufacture our own products. We can sell it through a website or on e-commerce. We don't even need a physical store. Where do we get the money from? That is the tricky part. We can take a loan from the bank. I have my parents' house and nobody lives there. We can just use it as collateral to take a loan. And what do you need me for? You can just start the business on your own. Albert, I've known you for more years than I can remember. I can't do this all alone. I need someone to help me out with everything. And you're the only one I know who's sincere enough to help me build a business. But I don't. Listen to me, Albert. Now that Grace and Julia are gone, you can take the risk. If this doesn't work out, we'll just go back to our old lives working in a factory. And I've already planned everything out. I've talked to the raw material supplier, the manufacturing center, and the logistics company. All we need to do is kickstart the business. We know this business well, don't we? We've literally spent most of our lives manufacturing these things. I don't know about this one, Mark. Just trust me on this one. This is a chance to change our lives for good. Julia left you because you didn't have enough money. Now is the time to change all of this. We have to take the risk if we want to make our lives better. What do you have to lose? There's nothing for you to lose. And a man who has nothing to lose has everything to gain. And it'd be much better than just sitting here and reminiscing about the things you've lost. I guess you're right. I'll help you. Perfect. Mark and I started our own company, and within the first 5 months, we reached the break-even point. We didn't even take a salary for the first year. In the second year, we were making decent profits. After the second year, the business started booming. We were in a cash cow market with a cash cow company at our disposal. During the third year, I bought a new car and I got married to Jean, who was a friend of Mark. And just like Mark had said, the business was going to change our lives for good, and it did. But life has its own ways of kicking us down. After 3 years of starting the business, a tragedy struck when I had an accident while driving. I was bedridden and hospitalized for 7 months. I had a few punctures in the right lung, along with some broken right ribs and a broken right foot. I thought everything was over and I wouldn't make it. After the 3rd month of being hospitalized, Grace came to check up on me. It was overwhelming to see my daughter after years. She used to visit me every day and take care of me. Just when I thought my relationship with my daughter was healing, Mark revealed something that made me furious. Mark told me that he heard Grace talking on the phone with Julia. She was talking about how she was going to ask me to inherit all my wealth. He also heard her say to Julia that she was tired of pretending that she cared about me and was hoping that I would die sooner. At this point, I knew Mark was far more trustworthy than Grace and Julia, but I wanted to be sure, so I called Grace one day to talk to her, and Grace came. The doctors say that the punctures in my lung are lethal, and I probably won't make it, so I plan to donate all of my wealth to an orphanage. I know you're doing good in life, and you don't want any of my money. Julia is with David, and David already has a lot of money. I've transferred all of my business profit shares to the orphanage, and I'm glad that you're here with me during my last moments. What? Dad? What happened? How can you just give away all your money to charity? I thought you'd be happy to hear this. Happy? Dad, you're such a fool. No wonder Mom left you. What are you saying, dear? It's all for your good cause. You know what would have been a good cause? Giving all of it to your daughter. I came here every day to take care of you thinking I'd inherit all of your wealth. But you're far more dumb than I imagined. So you were here just for the inheritance? That was the least you could do for your daughter. You know what? I don't even want to see your face anymore. Grace left, and at that moment, I knew that Mark was telling the truth. After a few months, I recovered and was discharged from the hospital. I decided to go pay a visit to David and Julia. I went to their house and Grace was already there. All of them were shocked to see me alive. They cared so little about me that they didn't even try to check whether I passed away or not. I had a document with me that had my will. I showed it to them and laughed at their faces. I told them that I knew David's hotel was about to shut down because of the losses and Grace hit a stagnant point of her career. I told them that I knew they needed the money now more than ever. I showed them the document that mentioned that all my wealth would go to Jean and to our child if we ever had one. The moment Julia and Grace read that document, they froze. Both of their jaws dropped when they realized what was written in the document. When they came back to their senses, they started crying and apologizing to me, telling me that they were my family and I couldn't do this to them. I told Julia that David was about to lose his hotel because of the debt he had, and they'd also lose their house. She would then have to start working again and live in a cheap apartment. And I'd be living in a luxurious home with my new wife, living our best lives. I looked at Grace and told her that she would never have my wealth. She wanted me out of her life so she could have a better life. Well, looks like her plan didn't work out. I would buy new cars, go on vacations, and send her postcards every year. She can just sit in her miserable office and look at them and cry. I had no intention of forgiving them for what they did to me. It has been 6 years since then. Julia lives in a cheap apartment with David and works in a breakfast club as a stewardess. And Grace lost her job 2 years ago and lives with them. They still try to reach out to me every now and then, but I just don't care now. I'm never forgiving them ever. They're paying for what they did, and they totally deserve all of this misery. On the other hand, my business has expanded exponentially in these years. We are shipping worldwide now, and we have multiple stores all across the country. I never thought that the daughter who called me a penniless factory worker would now be begging for my forgiveness. And the wife who left me for another man because I was broke would fall down on her face and see me thrive. I guess now they know that I am more than just a broke factory worker.